We're standing in a field right now that's going to get lime applied in the next few days, and during our Farm Basics time today, we just wanted to talk about why we're applying lime and what changes it will make to our soil and how it will improve our yields.
One of the biggest things that you can do on a farm or in a garden or even a lawn to get crops or desirable plants to grow better is to monitor the pH of the soil and change it as you need to. For example, this particular field has a lower than normal pH. Neutral pH is 7, and when you get down in the low 6s or even in the high 5s for pH, it's a pretty acidic soil, so there's a lot of acid in the soil. So to correct that, you can apply lime, which is calcium carbonate, and that will make a chemical change happen in the soil to raise that pH, and all of a sudden crops and desirable plants start growing a whole lot better.
Well, the interesting thing about this, though, is a lot of times in the lower areas of the fields where the drainage is not so good, like exactly where we're standing here, the soil pH here really isn't that bad. In fact, the soil pH might be on the high side. Well, with lime on the rest of this field, other than this low ground, we're going to apply about 6 tons of lime per acre. And it's pretty good lime. It's going to last us for several years, and it will adjust that pH over several years. So that all is good, but we'll probably spend $40 an acre to do that. Okay, so if we're going to spend $40 an acre, we kind of want to have the lime where it's going to benefit us. If they apply lime in this low ground where the soil pH is just fine, it's probably not going to hurt a whole lot, but why spend $40 an acre where we don't have to?
Depending on the soil type and how low that pH is, variable rate application of lime is very important in fields, and it does pay for itself. You need a little bit more lime when that pH is a little lower, or when that soil is a little heavier and more resistant to change. So that's one way when you're putting on lime to make sure you're getting a good return on investment.
With the variable rate application though, with lime, we do think it's important, although you don't have to do what we would call variable rate application where you have GPS and fancy equipment and everything else. All we're doing at our farm is we're just telling the guys who are spreading the lime, hey, just stay out of the low grounds. So that's our method of variable rate application. So what we're trying to tell you is...
It's pretty low tech. It doesn't have to be high tech.
Right.
There are low tech ways of doing it too. And you may be asking, okay, well, you're talking about this lime. What change does that really make in the soil by raising that pH up? And what happens, all the nutrients that crops need, most of them are available in the soil once that pH comes up, so they aren't tied so tightly to the soil particles. So as the pH comes up, more nutrients are available, and the crop's able to pull them out of the soil with its roots and with soil moisture.
So in other words, by nutrients available, what we're saying is there might be lots of phosphorus and potassium and other nutrients that plants need to grow sitting there in the soil. But if the soil pH is really low, like let's say it's down into the 4s or into the low 5s or even the upper 5s, you don't have the same nutrient availability that you do when the soil pH is around 7. So more of those nutrients that are sitting there in the soil are available and accessible to plants when the soil pH is around 7. So that's why adjusting that pH is so terribly important. To give you an idea in percentage terms, a 6.8 or 7 pH is about where we want to have the soil pH. If in corn and soybean fields it's down to a 5 pH, you're giving up 25% of yield approximately. So before you ever start the season, 25% of your yield is gone just because you don't have nutrients available and other things going on in the soil. You don't have as much bacteria and beneficial fungi and things like that as active at a 5 pH.
Well, it doesn't sound like that big a difference. You say, oh, a 5 versus a 7, that's not a huge change, but the pH scale is logarithmic. So when you move from a 7 down to a 6 is 10 times more acidic than a 7. When you move down to a 5 is 10 times more acidic than a 6 and 100 times more acidic than a 7. So dropping down into the 5s for pH is a really big deal out in the soil. And if you're having trouble getting nutrients into your crop and you're having poor growth, changing that pH is the best thing you can do. Throwing more nutrients out there is just going to lead to more tie-up. Those nutrients are going to get tied up in that soil and not be available to the crop. So your best dollar spent, your best return on investment is using lime to fix that soil pH.
Well, once you do fix your soil pH, you should have better crop growth, but you might have better weed growth as well. We'll tell you how to stop our Weed of the Week coming up later in the show.